face. All right, here we go. Let's record an alien invasion, shall we?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Alien Invasion number 253, recorded on Thursday, December 13th, 2018. I'm Dave Nelson, along with Mr. Brad Ludwig. Hello, Brad.
Hello.
On this very special episode, we discuss the recent CW DC crossover event, Elseworlds. Elseworlds Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. And up here in Canada, we had to wait till Tuesday because The Flash, which was number 1, didn't become available on Netflix until Tuesday. By that time, Parts 2 and 3 were aired. So, but it was cool because we got to watch it all in one night, like a big movie. What was your watching experience? You probably watched it on the CW app, right?
Yes. So, I mean, there was a day delay, but no, it was, I just actually, before we're recording this, I just watched the Supergirl episode.
Which I thought, in the whole scheme of things, I thought the Supergirl episode was probably the weakest of the 3. Even though it did have the big reveal at the end, I thought it wasn't as interesting as the first couple. But we'll get into that later. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run down a quick summary that I got off Wikipedia because, like I told Brad in the pre-show, I was half drunk. I was half in the bag when I watched this, so I need some help from Wikipedia. So just bear with me here. So, okay, wait a second. Do you think we need this summary, Brad, or do you just want to just kind of wing it? Because I think it's very boring for the listener for them to hear me rattle off all these words.
Let's just kind of, we'll use it as a loose outline of events that as they happened.
Okay, so I want to just clarify. Some people out there may be thinking, oh, wait a second, Dave. There's no aliens. This is not alien related. Au contraire.
Au contraire.
There's a few aliens because Clark, Kara, the Monitor, he's alien, right?
Correct.
And then there was John Jones also in it.
Correct.
As Martian Manhunter. So,
and Brainiac 5 was in it.
Is he considered an alien?
He is an alien. He's a Kaluan.
Okay. All right. So, first episode, we start with the scene that they've been showing for the past week at the end of all the shows. It's on Earth 90, and you see all these dead bodies. And then,
I want to double check something real quick because I have a suspicion that he did his version of the show.
We're talking John Wesley Ships or
John Wesley Ship.
Okay.
And it's called, yep, here it is, Earth 90.
Okay.
His version of the Flash TV show debuted in 1990.
Oh, I see what they did there. They're clever, those guys.
It's just like Kara's Earth 38. 1938 is when Superman first debuted in comic book form.
Cool. Okay, so it begins on Earth 90, and they're kind of panning over this charred landscape with, like, you could tell there was a battle that went on, and all these dead bodies, and you see people that we kind of know. Like, I believe Captain Cold is lying there.
Mm-hmm.
The Green Arrow from the Smallville universe is lying there. You can tell by what he was wearing. And some other DC characters. And then you see the Monitor. No, you see the Flash version that is played by John Wesley Shipp.
Mm-hmm. And he's in his original. Well, they remade it, but it's his original costume from the 1990s show.
And he's playing the Flash. He's not playing Jay Garrick
No,
or Barry's father. He's playing a version of the Flash, Barry Allen, on Earth 90, because how it was explained to me was it's the same person, but he ends up being different people, kind of.
actually, what this does is it puts that show into canon.
Okay.
So the 90s show existed, but on a different Earth.
Okay. So let's get beyond that.
Okay.
Do you want to explain what happens next?
Yeah. So at the point where we're led to believe that Earth 90 is about to be basically destroyed, that Flash runs off and disappears. So then we roll into the Earth that we know of, and shenanigans ensue. The sky is slowly starting to turn reddish, and lightning is striking in just random spots. It's not a normal storm at all. So let's see. I want to look at. Oh, Jesus.
Well, okay. So Oliver wakes up in Barry's bed.
Oh, yeah. I apologize. I jumped way ahead, didn't I? Yeah, we start out and it's Oliver. Yeah, in Barry and Iris's apartment.
And he's waking up and he hears Iris's voice calling Barry, and he stumbles out and he's like, what the hell's going on here? And it turns out that Oliver Queen, in that universe, they think he's Barry. And then we go to find then we flash over to Barry Allen, who wakes up kind of in the middle of some kind of sparring with Diggle, and it turns out that he is the Green Arrow. He is Oliver Queen.
Yeah, basically they've swapped lives.
Yeah.
And I say that very specifically, that they swapped lives, because you get to see for a brief moment Barry's fighting Diggle, and he beats Diggle, which he's very surprised of. But his shirt, he kind of looks and he's like, oh man, I've got serious abs. And you see that he's got the scars that Ollie has on his body. So, I mean, they've literally swapped lives.
I think I missed something. I think there was the scene with Dr. What's his face?
Dr. Deegan?
Dr. Deegan and the Monitor. The Monitor gives him the Book of Destiny, right? The Book of Destiny. And he creates this alternate universe where Barry Allen is Oliver and vice versa. So,
yes, yeah, yep.
Let's see. The next thing what happens is Oliver goes to Star Labs and he tries to figure out what the hell's going on. And then, we're doing a terrible job at explaining this.
We really are. This is not going very well. And we're doing lots of ahs.
What we could do is we could just go into our discussion segment and let the episodes play out through our questions that we'll be asking.
Okay.
How's that sound?
That sounds great.
Okay, so these are just a few basic questions, and we answered the first question, what type and were there aliens in this crossover? And we said yes. There's Clark Kent, aka what's his Krypton name?
Kal-El.
Kal-El. There's Kara. There's Martian Manhunter and the Monitor and Brainiac. So there's your aliens right there. Alien invasion. There's your aliens. Okay. So who was the villain And what was his or her motivation? It's a tough one because it's very kind of blurry. The lines are blurry on this.
Yeah, here's kind of the weird thing. As a person who read DC Comics and knows who the Monitor is and the part that he plays in Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is somewhat of what this is pulled from. In the comics, there's the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor. They are the matter universe and antimatter universe foils of each other. And what ends up happening is, in the process of the Anti-Monitor trying to basically one up the Monitor to try to get rid of him, he is destroying all of these different universes, these different DC Comics had kind of explained things that especially when it came to the Justice League for a while there. I think it was like every year or something like that. Quite often they had Earth 1 and Earth 2 crossovers. And what happened is they took their Golden Age superheroes, the heroes that were, around late 30s up into the 50s. And when the seduction of the innocent, when it was deemed that comic books had caused truancy and all these horrible things, comic books were essentially banned for all intents and purposes. And then in the 60s, that fervor had died down and they were brought back, but they redid the characters. It brought them into, because essentially 20 years had kind of passed for these characters. So they rebooted them for all, really. So what they did is they said, okay, all those stories still exist. We acknowledge them, but they are in a different universe. And so that's how they made that that distinction, that separation. They acknowledged the past, but they kept it alive basically by having this Earth 2. And then they could have, different stories, and it kind of opened up some avenues for them to do interesting things.
And then it got very convoluted and there was too much going on. There was too much back and forth, too much different universes. And that's why DC decided to do to kind of just reboot things and do the Crisis on Infinite Earths, right?
Somewhat, yes. There were some continuity issues, things that they wanted to clean up, streamline, and it was kind of deemed that having too many universes just caused problems for writers and creators of comics. So they decided to pare it down. But in the process of paring it down, they had just purchased the Charlton Comics properties, their superhero properties like Peacemaker, Blue Beetle, Captain Atom. There were a number of characters, superhero characters that they purchased from the Charlton line of comics, and they pulled them into this Crisis on Infinite Earths. So that was their introduction.
All right. So going back to the Monitor, he was kind of sort of the villain in this, but he more like made this doctor the villain by giving him the Book of Destiny, and in the process changed the realities on the Earth that all the shows are taking place, or not all the shows, the Barry Oliver Earth, I guess. So, okay. So what type of technology or powers did they possess? The villains, two of them, kind of. I guess we could say the Book of Destiny, that was the power. There's no real technology involved in that. It seems very magical. or something.
Yeah.
You probably know more about this than I do.
Well, Dr. Destiny had a magic gem. And when I say gem, I don't mean like a little diamond. I mean like something like something the size of your fist, and that allowed him to distort reality in the comics, and that's kind of where he came from. And the reason why at the end of the episode his face is all kind of, he looks like horribly aged and gray, and that's actually how he looked in the comics.
Oh, okay. All right.
Just he was kind of a creepy, mystical dude.
All right. I'm totally lost. I don't know where we're going with this.
No, but you asked who the villain was, and I was explaining that yes, Dr. Destiny in the comics is a villain, and the way they structured this in the TV show, the Monitor gave the villain, who in the or at least in the TV show didn't have any powers, gave him the ability to have powers and to use them however he saw fit, but he knew that he was going to use them very poorly.
And we should also explain that the Monitor was going from universe to universe, kind of testing each universe to see how they could handle this book, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, Oliver and Barry, they finally meet up. I'm going to go back to the explanation a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They finally meet up, and they decide that they have to go to Kara's Earth to get some help in figuring this whole thing out, because they figure that the people on their Earth think that they're each other, but maybe if they go to a different Earth, Earth 38, they'll know them by their real, they'll see right through it. And
they would not have been affected by the chicanery.
Yes, thank you.
On Earth 1.
So they get the wormhole manipulator thing, and they travel to Earth 38. And before they do, though, we flash to Earth 38 with what music, Brad?
Oh, the music from Smallville.
Yeah.
And they actually were at the house and the farm that was the original Smallville.
Yeah.
The Kent farm.
So it was kind of a nod to Smallville in those characters in that universe. So
yes,
they get the help from Kara and Superman. They go back to Earth 1, right?
And we're introduced to Lois Lane.
Oh yeah, that's right, Lois Lane. And we find out that at the end that she's pregnant, right?
We're getting ahead of ourselves, but yes.
It doesn't, in my head, it doesn't like flow linearly. It's just kind of all a mishmash of ideas and events. So that's why I said that.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so and then Cisco arrives. This is before they go back. Cisco arrives and goes, "Hey man, we need your help because there's this robot thingy called Amazo, and he's kind of wreaking havoc. So all you guys come back to Earth 1 because we need to defeat Amazo." And suffice to say, they did. And that was pretty much the end of episode 1, the Flash episode. Now,
yes.
At the end of that, they travel to Gotham City.
Yes.
Because that's where they find out that Deegan is there. So that's why the reason why they go to Gotham City.
That he is a psychiatrist or a doctor at Arkham Asylum.
Yep. And there they meet a woman named Kate Kane, who it turns out to be
the cousin of Bruce Wayne.
And
Batwoman.
Batwoman, yes.
Yeah, I think that she was well cast. I think she did a great job as Kate Kane, and she felt her portrayal as Kate Kane she came across as being very tough, just like she is in the comics. And then, I mean, just that costume that she wears is so close to the comic book version that it's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous how how close that is to the comic book version.
Now the costume on the show, the red hair on the costume was not real. Is her hair really long and red in the comics, or is it part of the costume too?
That is part of the costume.
Okay. Well, that's neat. That's a neat disguise.
No, Kate Kane, in the Batwoman comic books, is a short-haired, rich badass who doesn't act like she's rich. You know, well, no, I take that back. She comes across as a socialite, but she acts like Bruce Wayne, I guess is the best way to say it. But she doesn't, not in the exact same manner of trappings that Bruce Wayne has. And she just has money. She doesn't really have a job per se. She just has money.
And we find out from her that Bruce, aka Batman's, been away from Gotham City for a long time.
For about 3 years.
Yep. All right. So
you know, the one thing that we don't really know is, I think it was last season they mentioned Gotham City.
And they mentioned
only briefly.
Yeah.
And they mentioned Bruce Wayne. But we don't really know if that's like a partial rewrite in the timeline. And we'll get into it in a little bit. We don't know if that's a partial rewrite of the timeline.
What do you mean when you say that?
Well, they've not really talked about Batman at all in any of the shows, obviously, because it's a Fox show. Fox has that property right now. So they couldn't really do anything with Batman. They can mention little things about Gotham City. They can use the name, but they couldn't really do anything with the Batman. So with them just mentioning Bruce Wayne and Gotham City last season, and now we know that he's been gone for 3 years, my question was that a timeline rewrite?
Okay.
Because at the end of this thing, Batwoman still exists and calls Oliver. So there you go.
Okay. And they do mention they think the Batman is a legend, or
yes.
And Oliver gets all offended because he thinks that he's the original vigilante.
Yes. It's one of those things where the Batman is considered a legend and Oliver does not believe. He's like Bigfoot. It treated kind of like Bigfoot. Ollie doesn't believe in him and Barry does. And then we get confirmation that, yeah, he did exist.
Okay.
He was real. So
okay, they get to Gotham City. They meet Kate Kane, and then what happens?
They get bailed out of jail by Kate Kane.
That's right. Well, they meet her first, and then they get arrested. Then she bails them out.
Yes.
Okay. No. Wait a second.
No, you got that backwards.
Yep.
I was going to let it go, but no.
Okay. I'm going to have to do a lot of editing on this one.
Well, that's all right.
All right. So what happens next after they get bailed out?
Then she takes them to basically Wayne Tower, and they have a little discussion of, why are you in my city? You know, what the heck's going on? And they kind of explain a little bit of the situation. And also I mentioned the red skies and the lightning storm actually leaves Central City and heads to Gotham. So we find out that it's following Barry and Oliver.
Yep, because they're the ones that were affected by Dr. Destiny and the Book of Destiny.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think that that's what Barry Allen from Earth 90 was kind of homing in on.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully we had Cisco, Mr. Terrific, Michael Cold. What? I keep forgetting his name because he just is. Mr. Terrific, essentially.
Yeah.
And Felicity are all geniuses, and they basically create a beacon that can facilitate the Einstein-Rosen bridge, and they just really get uber tech. It was like Doctor Who showed up for a brief second and hit us with all this Star Trekian techno babble.
Did they reverse the polarity on anything?
Yeah. They reversed the flow of the dilithium crystal chamber through the Jeffries tubes and cause a spontaneous reaction in the quantum flux capacitor, whatever. Anyway, yeah. So at that point, a breach like Cisco just opens up, and Barry Allen from Earth 90 shows up, and everybody, and he's wearing this costume, and of course it's John Wesley's ship. So now they're playing the guessing game. Are you my dad? Are you are you Jay Garrick? He's like, no, I'm Barry Allen from my Earth. And then he turns and looks at John Diggle and goes, John, why aren't you wearing your ring?
Mm-hmm.
Which I just went, ah, at that point, because John Stewart is a Green Lantern. And they kind of been throwing around having a Green Lantern show up at some point. And it wasn't Berlanti. It was Guggenheim mentioned that, yeah, that's a tease and something might be happening with that in the future. So
very cool.
And then he goes, oh, well, in this Earth, yeah, I guess you don't have your ring.
So his name must be John Stewart in his universe.
Yes, that is my guess.
It's probably going to be like John Diggle Stewart or something like that.
Who knows?
Do that with Barry's dad was really, they explained him being related to or not his dad, but they explained that Jay Garrick, his name, like his middle name was like something with Barry's name, or I forget exactly how it went. Forget I said anything like that.
Okay.
So let's wrap up exactly what happened in short spurts here. What happened next? Let's move on here. Do you want to say what's next?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. God, now I have to think for a second.
Well, we do have
they pull through the Flash, and he goes, you need to, or he doesn't come all the way through the first time, and he mentions the book.
Mm-hmm. And basically the rest of the crossover is them trying to get the book away from Dr. Destiny Deegan, right?
Yep, Dr. Deegan.
Yep. And Deegan gets a second chance to rewrite, and that's when Oliver and Barry become the Trigger Twins.
Yes.
And they end up they're in Gotham City, right? Or are they in Star City?
They're in Central City.
Or Central City, excuse me.
But it's been it's a mishmash now of National City. Basically because now we're in the Supergirl portion, the third part of this, and what we find out in the first few seconds is, or in the completely revamped intro to Supergirl,
yeah.
Dr. Deegan has been given the second chance with this book and been told to think bigger. So he makes himself Superman because he gets to experience him for a short period of time. But he ends up going back to Earth 38 because they say that Superman and Supergirl shouldn't be away from their universe together for too long. So he goes back to keep an eye on things.
Mm-hmm.
With Kara there and him rewriting things, he gets things kind of mucked up. And so even though we're on Earth 1, we've got Jimmy Olsen here. We've got we've got Alex Danvers there. We've got everything's just kind of been pulled together in a weird way. And the Trigger Twins actually are a legit DC Comics villain group.
Yeah, I was gonna say they sound very much like a DC, like one of the rogues or two of the rogues, or a rogue type character.
I can't remember whose villain they are, but they're lower tier, like D string. But anyway. So he now has the black outfit of Superman. And yeah, Barry and Oliver are the bad guys, and they have to figure out without powers because they've had their powers stripped from them completely. And not that Ollie has powers, but he's not. He kind of, because Jimmy Olsen kicked his butt.
Mm-hmm. So he lost some of it. He lost some of his skill.
Yeah, he's not. He has the memories of who he was, but he doesn't have the skills that he had.
Just like what happened to Barry Allen when Barry became Oliver, he kind of got Oliver's skills.
Yeah, it's like he got his muscle memory and everything that kind of came with his abilities as an archer.
Yep. So let's wrap it up here.
Yeah,
we're pretty close to the end.
Ollie says, "Hey, where do bad guys from Central City go?" And they go to a place, and they run into Gary, who is the only appearance of somebody from Legends of Tomorrow.
Yep.
That we get, and he's the bartender at this dive bar for villains that we've kind of been introduced to in the Flash. And Cisco Ramon is a crime lord, a kingpin.
So great at that. Like he plays really good evil characters. Like he's done it before.
Yeah.
Like he played his evil the version of him on Earth 2 was very evil.
Yes. So Cisco doesn't want anything. I'm sorry, Mr. Ramon doesn't want anything to do with these two knuckleheads, and he has Jimmy Olsen take him out, knock him down a peg or two, and Ollie, thinking fast, says, "Hey, we've got a business proposition for you," and it deals with getting rid of Superman, which piques his interest. Mm-hmm. So that's how we get that, and they convince him as a part of this plan to jump over to Earth 38 because Cisco has his powers.
He doesn't like to use them though, right?
He does not like to use them.
No, he doesn't like to use them if it doesn't involve crime fighting. Or not crime fighting, but
crime.
Yeah, crime and cry. Yeah.
And they end up at the Fortress of Solitude on Earth 38, and he sees Superman, the real Superman, and says, "Boy, you don't look anything like him," which is a joke. And they grab Superman and Lois Lane and jump over to Earth 1, where they go to help the team. At this point, Kara's been thrown in the pipeline. She's been kind of depowered and thrown in the pipeline. So, and Alex Danvers is working at Star Labs, which is where she's being held, and she works for Superman.
That's his headquarters.
Evil Superman, yes.
Evil Superman's headquarters or lair is at Star Labs.
Yes. And as Kara does, she kind of turns it around and has a conversation with her supposed to be her sister, and gets her to realize that she wants to genuinely help and fix things, and Alex Danvers of this world falls for it because she knows things that only somebody who would be really close to her would know, things that she hasn't told anybody, like she's a lesbian. Because her and Killer Frost have a conversation about, that guy, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, whatever. Nobody realizes she hasn't come out to anybody.
Yeah.
In this timeline, or whatever you want to call it, in this rewrite of the universe. So, that's like her secret in her heart of hearts, that she wants to be married. She wants to find a wife and have kids, and live the dream. Be able to work and love and have a family, and that's not anything that she's told anybody. So boom, she gets out.
They connect,
and she releases her.
Yep.
And wackiness ensues once more. They
eventually defeat Superman, right? Or do they?
There's a huge fight between the Supermans, and we find out that he's called the real Superman, or the real Superman that we know of, is the Bizarro of Dr. Deegan's version of this rewrite of the universe. So we get a mention of Bizarro Superman, essentially, who is the opposite of Superman.
Yep.
And so they fight for a while, and he beats the crap out of real Superman, and Kara has to kind of step in and help out and save her cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So,
at what point do they get the book back and reset the universe?
Oh man.
I'm trying to read the little synopsis here.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember at what point they get the book away from him, because Supergirl asks Kara when she's got basically everybody kind of splits up, and it's Barry and Kara and Alex, and they are they ask, where would he keep something truly valuable, and she's like, and Alex says, oh, in his Fortress of Solitude, and you find out it's the Time Vault. It's the original room that the Reverse Flash from the first season had his little hideaway, essentially, where he kept his secrets. And that's been repurposed. So they get a hold of the book, and that's where it's stored. And at that point, Kara opens the book, and she's like, I can't figure this out, but it's been alluded to earlier that Clark has seen magic books like this in the past, and she's fairly certain that he can operate it and set things right, which essentially he starts to do.
And then they slow the Earth down, right?
So the plan is that Clark, or Superman, real Superman, starts to fix things, only gets it partially fixed, and Dr. Deegan Superman recovers, grabs the book, and starts to try to think bigger again and reset the universe so that he can win. And the plan is a kind of a callback to the first Superman movie, the original Superman movie,
yeah,
which as soon as I heard them say, well, we just need to fly really fast around the earth and slow down time. And it's like, we all know that that's not how it works from the Flash. That's been made abundantly clear. But the only thing that makes sense to me is that's how it's a tip of the hat. And what really kind of seals the deal for me is that Lois Lane almost gets killed. Which, I mean, she essentially the thing that tips Christopher Reeve's Superman over the edge is Lois Lane dies. She gets buried alive in the car during that earthquake. So I think that solidifies why it's a nod. And I was telling Anessa, she's like, that doesn't even work. And I'm like, what they said eventually is that it wasn't that he slowed down time of the Earth. It's he went back in time.
Okay.
We are shown something that looks like the Earth is slowing down and reversing, but that's Superman traveling himself back in time. He didn't change the Earth's flow of time or whatever.
Okay. And everything goes back to normal, right? After that?
Excuse me. Yeah. Because part of it is that Superman says that if you do this time wonky thing, you'll die. He saw that in the book when he had it open. He was trying to set everything right. Because the book not only it allows you to change and rewrite destiny and the rules of the universe. And as the book was ripped out of his hands, he saw that was how Kara and Barry die. They basically burn themselves up, basically turning back time.
Mm-hmm.
And Ollie says, okay, well, you guys do that. I'm going to go do a thing. I'll be back. Superman's like, what? He's like, you get the book. I'll take care of something else. And Barry goes to talk to the Monitor because he's got like a side dimension in door 1A of some apartment building that they had stumbled across him before.
Right. Yeah.
At a certain point, which we didn't talk about because at that point, it's just like they're having a goofy conversation, but now things are a little bit more clear. Ollie storms the door, knocks it open, and ends up in the other dimension. And he's like, here's the thing. You've told us it's a test. We're doing something to fix it, but in the process, two people who are really awesome are going to die. And, you told me that I need to figure out who I truly am. And here you go. I'm a horrible human being, but those two people make the world better. They shouldn't die. And we're kind of left with the thought that Ollie made a deal. And we're going to find out what that is next year because they tease Crisis on Infinite Earths for 2019.
Yeah, I think I know what's going to happen. It's going to be his way out of the Arrow. I think next season is going to be the last season of the Arrow. And
or at least and I listened to a podcast that, and I only stumbled across it because I saw that Stephen Amell was on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast that he does. So it was like Lex Luthor and Oliver Queen meet. And I'm like,
oh, that's a podcast.
Yeah, he does. It's very interesting. It feels like, what if Mark Maron was more Hollywood than Mark Maron actually is?
Okay.
And Michael Rosenbaum's a very interesting guy, but he's really trying to go for Mark Maron's talking honestly, openly, and that's kind of what it is. And in the course of, to get to my point, in the course of the conversation, he's like, I'm getting older. It's harder to keep this shape, and it's a demanding schedule, so on and so forth. And it really, without him saying it, it sounded like he's getting to the end.
Yeah.
Well, and this would be a good opportunity. But he also said the nice thing about the Green Arrow is other people have been the Green Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
So he could step out and somebody else could take over as the Green Arrow.
Yeah. I think I know what's going to happen. I think they're going to do Crisis next fall, and instead of in the comics where Barry Allen is lost, well, gets erased, right? Pretty much what happens, or dies.
He dies.
Okay.
He doesn't get erased.
Okay. He dies. I think they're going to switch it up and have Oliver die instead of Barry. And I think that's the deal that he made with the Monitor. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. I probably.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that would be very interesting to see how they would.
Because
to do that mid-season, because essentially it's going to be, because they said the fall, in the fall of 2019. So either that's our opening salvo as they do a crossover, which I don't think that they'll do. So partway into the first half of the season, they get rid of Oliver Queen, and I'm not. That would be really kind of gutsy to do.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will.
Their property. They can do whatever they want with it.
And quite honestly, with Colton Hayes, back in the series, that's a distinct possibility.
And he's a great actor.
He is a wonderful actor. I love Colton Hayes.
Yeah. All right, so let's just quickly wrap it up here. They go back to Earth 38, and Clark and Lois reveal that, reveal to Kara that they're expecting a baby. Spoiler alert from the very beginning of this podcast. They're returning to Argo City for a period of time so she can have the baby there, right?
Yes. And the reason for that is because they've simulated the red sun. And somebody, I think it was Bradbury, wrote a story of how Clark Kent and Lois Lane couldn't do the deed because it would kill her. And they kind of allude to that a little bit here with, hey, we were in Argo City and they'd been there for a while, and lo and behold, while they were there, stuff happened, and now she's going to have a baby, and now they're going to Argo City because if the baby kicked and has, Clark's super strength, which they established in the new Supergirl that it was her time, soaking up the yellow sunlight, that's what charged her and gave her her abilities. A baby inside of a mother is not going to get the sunlight, so I'm not sure. I didn't quite get that, but I'm probably overthinking it.
Yeah, you probably are.
Yeah. Wouldn't be the first time.
So Oliver, after that scene happens, Oliver is contacted by Kate, who says Deegan, who's now in Arkham, has made a new friend, the Psycho Pirate.
Yes.
Who tells Deegan worlds will live, worlds will die, and the universe will never be the same.
In the original Crisis on Infinite Earth series, Psycho Pirate was a character from another Earth who ends up kind of being drug around a little bit by the Anti-Monitor. And at the end of the whole series, he's one of very few people who remember that there were multiple Earths, that there were multiple universes. And it makes him a little bit more crazy than he was before. The Psycho Pirate's abilities are in the mask that he wears, that gold mask that he had on his face.
Yeah.
That is a mask that he can cause other people to feel certain emotions that he wants them to feel. Okay. If he wants them to be happy, he can channel that through the mask and it makes people happy or laugh or change their emotional states. And so that's his ability is in that mask.
And by the way, they portrayed Gotham City as crazy, like even crazier than Gotham City on the show Gotham.
Oh, and another thing that we need to talk about very briefly is that we're introduced to Nora Freeze, who is played by Stephen Amell's wife.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
And Nora Freeze is going to be one of the villains in the Batwoman TV show.
Exciting. Very exciting.
Yes.
And that's probably going to premiere next fall, I think. I believe.
I most likely.
Yeah. So all kinds of superhero TV goodness next year.
Yes.
All right. So I have a theory before we move on. And my theory is this, and tell me if you think this is correct as well. Next fall, when we do Crisis on Infinite Earths, Supergirl's Earth will be with Earth 1 after it's all done. Am I right? Do you think? That's what happens in the comic books, right?
Yeah. It would be interesting if they did it. They would have to go the full way, and they'd have to bring in Black Lightning too.
Yeah.
That would be, because Black Lightning has had nothing to do with any of the other CW shows. And not to say that it needs to, but I mean, if you're going to do the thing, do the thing.
Well, I don't think they've never said that he lives on a different or lives in a different universe than either Kara or Barry and Oliver. He may be doing his thing and they haven't really talked about it. That's all.
I think that I want to say I saw in an interview that he's just he is in a different universe.
Okay.
He's on another Earth that they haven't found. So, but quite honestly, I think that show doesn't necessarily need to. It stands well on its own, and I'm not sure they really need to bring it in. So I'm not sure if they would really want to do that.
Yeah,
I mean, people would welcome it with open arms, but it doesn't need Barry Allen and Oliver to muck about with it.
Muck about,
essentially.
Okay, so let's wrap this episode up with Easter eggs. I found a pretty good article at GameSpot.com. 25 Arrowverse Easter eggs that were in the crossover episodes. Did you click on the link? The link's in the
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So the number one they have is, "Oh Barry, what have you done this time?"
Yeah, that was the first thing that when Ollie is waking up in Iris's bed, he's like, "Oh crap!"
And then he says it after he puts the suit on.
Oh yeah, after the suit gets put on. Yeah.
And that's just a throwback to all the stupid things Barry has done in the past.
Yes.
Let's see. Number 2 is Ivo Labs. And this is the lab that houses Amazo. And Professor Anthony Ivo is a mad scientist villain in the comics. And he's appeared in the Arrowverse in season 2. He was an antagonist in Oliver's flashbacks. So he's been on before. So
yes. And the interesting thing about Dr. Ivo is he is a Atom villain.
Oh, okay.
And they obviously completely rewrote that for the series, but yes.
Yeah, they pick and choose whatever they want to use on the show.
Yeah, and which is fine. It just occasionally it's like my wife not being as comic book savvy as me will sit and watch one of these DC shows and I'll go, "Oh my gosh," or whatever, and make a noise, and she's like, "What?" And then we have to pause the episode, and then I kind of explain, stuff.
The big explainer.
Yeah, and I try not to mansplain it at least. So I got that going for me, but I have all these moments of, "Oh my God, they did that, and that's really cool."
Okay, so number 3 is Ray Palmer's Nanites. Legends of Tomorrow were not in the crossover, but they mention Ray Palmer because they used Nanites.
Yeah, and I said that Gary was the one nod. No, you're right. This was the other nod to the Legends of Tomorrow.
refresh my memory. What did they use the nanites for? I forget.
They used the nanites to knock out Barry.
Okay.
When they could knock out Ollie with gas, but because Barry could consume all the alcohol on the planet and not get drunk. So in order to create something to knock out Barry, they have nanites essentially that they can use to kind of shut him down.
That's right. They knocked him out and put him in the pipeline. That's
Yep.
right. Okay.
Correct.
We already talked about the Smallville moment when they went to Earth 38. They played the Somebody Save Me,
Yep.
the Remy Zero song. That was cool to hear. It came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it. It was neat. The Krypton shout-outs. What's this one?
They were talking about taking that time on Argo City. They mentioned that another portion of Krypton had been basically saved in a part of that hunk of Argo that exists.
Okay, and that's where that's the same place that Kara and who was it? What her old love interest, the Dax
Mon-El.
Yeah, that's where they went.
Yes,
they
correct.
discovered it, and they took the Martian Manhunter's car to it. Remember that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
His car, which is a spaceship, which is awesome.
A shape-shifting spaceship.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool car too.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, one of my favorite parts was when Barry had the arrows and Oliver. They basically repeated or reenacted the scene from the first season of The Flash, where Oliver was teaching Barry like
superhero stuff.
Yeah, superhero stuff using the arrows, and he got shot with the arrows, and that's what Barry did to Oliver and took a picture with his phone.
Yes.
All right.
And it was kind of interesting for that brief moment I went, that's kind of funny. And then Ollie's like, you did that just for revenge? I did it to teach you a lesson.
Yeah, he got pissed.
He got very angry about it.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to skip over Amazo because we already talked about it.
Well, the only thing about Amazo that I thought was interesting is they mentioned that it uses Mirakuru mist to kind of facilitate the copying of powers, which I thought was another callback to what is it? Third season of Arrow.
Okay. You have failed the city. It's said twice. It's said by Oliver when he's Barry, and Cisco's like, "Hey, buddy, I think you're saying that's not your line." And then Barry, when he goes full on Green Arrow, he says the line after he kills Amazo, or right before he kills him. Then the what's his face? Deadshot, or no, Slapshot.
Deathstroke. There is a Deadshot in the DC universe.
I know. I'm like,
yeah.
I know that's not right, but that sounds familiar.
There's a lot of dead and death in some of these character names sometimes.
Slade Wilson. No, that was Joe Wilson, son of Slade Wilson. That was back as Deadshot. No,
Deathstroke.
Okay. Let's see. The best Wi-Fi password.
That was a nice aside. Oh, by the way, the Wi-Fi password is Alfred.
Oh, that's right.
At the Wayne Tower.
William Shakespeare bust looks familiar. Adam West.
Yeah.
In his mansion in the 1966 Batman series, he would pull it back to access the Batcave, right?
Yep, they'd flip up Shakespeare's head and push the red button underneath, and it would slide back the bookcase so that they could go down the bat poles into the Batcave.
Right. Yeah, there was all kinds of stuff in Kate's office that looked like it should have been in the Batcave. Like it's stuff that looked very Batman-ish. I think she took some of Batman's stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Borrowed it. Let's see. Batman's greatest foes are locked up. Arkham Asylum, typically a who's who of villains, and Elseworlds is no different. Spotted on cell doors throughout the asylum are names like Cobblepot, Nigma, and a couple other ones that I'm not familiar with. Oh, Penguin, the Riddler, Clayface, and Poison Ivy. Okay, got it. Got it. Let's see. And Psycho Pirate, we already talked about that. The Scarecrow's fear gas pops up. That was cool. That was very cool. And Bane's mask
from the movie, which I thought was hilarious.
Okay. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. I don't remember seeing
that. No, I take that back. In the movie, we just got the face, like the part that covers the face. This covers, but it's shaped like that here.
Mm-hmm.
But it adds like the eye bit. So it's like a cross between the comics version and the movie version that we're seeing here. Because in the original comics version, he's wearing a luchador mask.
What's
for all intents, like a Mexican wrestling. It's like WWE, but in Mexico.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So
Nora Freeze, we already mentioned her.
Yeah, who is the wife of Mr. Freeze.
Mm-hmm. World's Finest was mentioned. I thought that was a cool. That they mentioned that. I had to explain to my wife what that meant. And I think I got it half right. Do you want to explain it real quick before we move on? World's
Finest was a comic book series where it was a Batman Superman comic series. So they teamed up together to have fantastical adventures and thwart crime.
Okay, Superman's black suit, that's a throwback to or a kind of a reference or an homage to the black suit Superman in the comics. And that was just, why was he wearing a black suit in the comic books?
That was when he was resurrected.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That was like his funerary outfit.
Okay.
That he was buried in.
Okay. Gary, we already talked about him. Fortress of Solitude, and the solution from the original Superman movie. And then
I will throw in one more Easter egg that they don't mention here. Towards the end of this thing, when Superman and Lois Lane come back from Earth 38, she has a hammer with her.
Okay.
That hammer that she strikes on the ground to kind of temporarily blind Dr. Deegan's Superman. And that is in the comic book series All-Star Superman. Superman in his Fortress of Solitude had an alien creature called a Sun Eater, and it was a baby Sun Eater. So it was very tiny. And he had a solar Solar Forge and the Solar Hammer. Solar Hammer and the Anvil was called something else. But basically, he would use these two items, and when he struck it together with the proper materials and whatnot, he'd make a small sun that he could feed to the Sun Eater creature, his pet. So that's where that hammer comes from.
Okay, neat. Good eye, Brad.
Thanks.
All right, so before we wrap things up, I want to ask you, Mr. Ludwig, if you would to compare this crossover to all the other ones they've done so far, how does it rate? Or how does it rank, I guess?
Wow, that's a very good question.
We should actually review what the other crossovers were. Last year was Earth X.
Yep.
I don't know if that was the actual name. What was
it was the Earth X series.
Okay. The year before that,
it was the Alien Invasion.
Oh, that's right. Yep. And that they introduced the Hawks in that one, right? Or was that the one?
The Thanagarians. Yes.
Okay. And then what was the first one? Was the Alien Invasion? Was that the first crossover, or was there one before that?
Give me just a second here. I'm going to.
There must have been, because
There we go. The official crossover events. Okay. So the very first one was Flash versus the Arrow, and that was season 3 of Arrow and season 1 of the Flash. Then the second crossover was the team up. Sorry. The Flash and the Arrow team up to take on Vandal Savage, who is looking for Kendra Saunders and Carter Hall, the reincarnations of Hawkgirl and Hawkman.
And that was the introduction, basically, or that was the first one with the Legends involved in the crossover, because we had the first crossover was just Arrow and Flash. The second one was Arrow, Flash, and Legends. And then the one after that was
well, then they had the Flash Supergirl crossover, which was World's Finest. That's where right. They team up to take down Silver Banshee and Livewire, and that's when Supergirl moved to the CW.
Mm-hmm.
Then came the Invasion. That was the Alien Invasion with the Dominators who came to Earth. And then they did a second crossover with Supergirl and the Flash, and that was the musical episode.
The Music Meister?
Yep. And then Earth X, and then Elseworlds.
Okay. So it sounded like, it seems like beginning early on, they did smaller, more frequent crossovers. Now they do one major event a year. That's what the vibe I'm getting now. Okay. So of all those, how does this one rank?
You know, I got to say, one of my favorite crossovers was the Flash Supergirl, the World's Finest. Granted, it wasn't, you know, all of them, but it was the Flash Supergirl. I really enjoyed that one. Let's see. I think my second favorite was Crisis on Earth X.
Okay.
And then I would say, gosh, Elseworlds was a little bit more seamless than Invasion. I think having 4 shows was
a little bit too much for
really tough.
Yeah.
And I think that they kind of acknowledged that by not having the Legends be in it. And they're right when they said that, you know, the Legends feels like an entirely different show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and especially with what they're doing now with their storyline with Hellblazer, with John Constantine, sorry. It wouldn't have fit at all.
Yeah. And it felt like this one this year, Elseworlds, God damn it. It seemed like one big movie as opposed to all the other crossovers previously. It seemed like, I don't know, maybe it was because my wife and I watched all the episodes back to back, but it still felt like one cohesive movie.
Yeah, no, it felt like it had a bit more of a rhythm. The only real complaints that I had was Superman's a little too much. You know, if they could have found a way to not have Superman be in it, I think it would have felt better.
Mm-hmm.
To me, not that, you know, I enjoy the actor who's portraying Clark Kent Superman. He does a great job. But at the end of the whole thing, he's like, well, you know, I'm going to hang up my cape for a while, and, you know, we're going to, you know, gestate the baby essentially on Argo City. So I'm leaving the planet for a while. Everything's in your capable hands. So, you know, it was like I just mopped up a little bit and I'm out, you know. And it just,
Yeah, it
I
didn't
don't
seem
know.
like he put too much effort into it, really.
It wasn't so much that, it was like they put him in as a major part and then they try to downplay it, and it's like either he is or he isn't.
Yeah.
And I really felt like they could have done that a little bit better.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Alien Invasion. We'll have the links to that article with all the Easter eggs in the show notes. You can check that out. Of course, we're always looking for your feedback as well. aliens@gncasts.com. You can let us know what you thought of the crossover episodes, the Elseworlds. And before we get out of here, I want to thank a few people. Monkey Warhol for our intro music. The song is called Alien Syndrome. You can find it and all of his other music at monkeywarhol.bandcamp.com. Also to Retward von Dernberg, a composer from Germany, for our closing song called Be Water. Learn more about him and his music at thecaravel.net. And finally, thanks to Mr. Ben Olson.
Thanks, Ben,
for doing our disclaimer audio at the very start of this episode. Go to benolson.com to find out what he's all about and what he does. All right, Brad, that's going to do it for this episode. Next time, we're back with a classic episode. We're talking news. We're talking a sighting. We're talking picks and warnings. A standard alien invasion episode next time.
What?
And we'll close things out. We'll close things out with that.
Excellent.
All right. Until next time, Brad, we'll see you soon, okay?
Sounds good. Bye.
All right. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to say anything about maybe it's going to be our last episode or whatever, because we weren't really decided on anything yet. So I just kind of made it sound bigger than it really could be, or might be. Who knows? But my wife had a pretty good idea that maybe the next one should be our last one, just because it'd be the last one of the year, and start the new year in a different thing.
Yeah. Well, Aness and I were talking about continuing the alien invasion.
That's what I figured. But yep. As far as my involvement,
yep.
Okay.
Word.
And we got to talk about all the little details. Yep. Maybe I can send you all the stuff that I have, all the documents and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And all the production pieces. All right, man. So let's plan, if you're able to, let's plan to do the episode, the next one, the week of Christmas week, that Thursday, if that's cool.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Cool? Okay. Yeah, the holidays are landing in the right spots this year.
Yeah.
Beginning of the week, get them out of the way, you get the rest of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super busy that week too. I'm doing mornings that week. So
ooh.
Yeah, I know.
That's rough.
So we'll see how that goes. I'll be up for it. I'm getting pretty used to doing things at night, getting a few hours sleep, getting up in the morning, doing the morning show, coming home and taking a nap. I can handle that.
Swing shift.
Yeah. And having the dog I've gotten really good at that, because he's basically been an infant. He's getting better, but for the most part that we've had him, he's been an infant, which means he gets up at 3:30 in the morning and wants to go out. Yeah. Yep. All right, man. Have a great Christmas, and I'll talk to you on Messenger.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, see ya.
Okay, bye.